My friends, do I have a treat for you? I saw how much you loved listening to 10 minutes of Kamala Harris on my last video about the town hall, and so I've got 20 minutes of Kamala Harris for you. That's right, I listened to her interview on NBC, and here I am analyzing it, breaking it down for you, and giving you my thoughts. So I went through, cut it up, took the painstaking time to edit it where I wanted so that I could not only have it stopped where I wanted it to stop, but also to present the entire context. I've not left anything out other than the goodbyes at the end. The entire interview is here. It's cut into bearable chunks, but by the time I've already edited 28 clips of Kamala Harris. Okay, so excuse me if I'm a little bit on edge. All right, here we go.
We're just talking about the campaign trail yesterday.
Yes.
And these key Rust Belt battlegrounds, as they call them, talking with undecided voters.
Yes.
You are reaching out that olive branch to these voters. You want to bring them on board. For them, for so many voters, we know that a huge issue for them is the economy.
Right.
It's the cost of living. I've been on the campaign trail. I hear that in the field again and again. You look at some of the numbers on this, and our new NBC News poll shows that more voters think that the Biden administration policies have hurt them rather than help them. And I wonder, are the last 4 years an obstacle to you in this race?
Here's how I look at it. First of all, let me be very clear. Mine will not be a continuation of the Biden administration. I bring my own experiences, my own ideas.
So we're starting with the economy. Now, she just wants you to know that she's going to be very clear, and she's going to tell you about 5 sentences before she really gets into her plan. But the thing I want to point out here is that she's already trying to distance herself from the Biden administration. She's trying to have it both ways, talking about, she's been part of cleaning up after Trump, and then, oh, here we go with, yeah, I'm not part of Joe Biden. Yeah, because the American people don't like anything they don't like, I'm not part of. But the things that they do like, yeah, that's me. That's all me. So, okay, moving on.
It has informed a number of my areas of focus, most of which are, on, to your point, lowering costs. I am traveling the country. I am very clear. Cost of groceries still too high. The voters know it. I know it. So part of my plan includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries, including the work I will do dealing with price gouging, something I dealt with when I was Attorney General, something I will deal with going forward.
The issue of groceries, this one kind of pisses me off because everybody wants to talk about the price gouging, the price gouging, the price gouging. Well, let's be realistic about this. Grocery stores run at about a 1 to 2% margin if they're lucky, especially the bigger ones. They don't make a huge amount of money on groceries on average. Now, after a hurricane or a natural disaster or something, yeah, of course, there are places that have price gouged, and there's laws against it in place. I'm not sure what she says, we're going to do work against price gouging. Well, what exactly do you mean by that? And I'm going to go ahead and say you don't mean anything by it, because price gouging isn't the issue. The issue is that energy costs are up and inflation is out of control because, I don't know, the spending under the Biden administration has been astronomical. The amount of money we're sending off to foreign aid, I mean, that's just a couple of things, but this is about inflation, the cumulative inflation that's been up over 20% under the Biden administration. That's what I'm talking about. Cumulative inflation and energy costs are the number one driver of this. Price gouging laws aren't going to do a thing. You can't just set prices for grocery stores. This has been tried and has failed many, many times. Price gouging is not the issue.
Dealing with price gouging, something I dealt with when I was Attorney General, something I will deal with going forward. Cost of housing. I'm speaking with people of every background in every area of the country, of every age. And, the idea of the American dream was something that previous generations could count on, not as much anymore. Bringing down the cost of housing by doing what I have done in my career that perhaps is a different approach, which is really actively working with the private sector, for example, home builders, to create incentives for them to build millions of new homes in housing units so we can bring down the cost, including what I will do to give people a $25,000 down payment assistance if they are a first-time home buyer.
Oh my God. Okay, so incentives for building more houses. The reason that people can't get a home loan is because of interest rates, you dingbat. I make a 6-figure salary. My credit score is over 800, and the best home loan interest rate I could get is over 10%. That's absolutely insane. Nobody can buy a home with interest rates like that. $25,000 if you're a first-time home buyer. If you want to get a house that's, decent, not from 100 years ago and not falling apart, that's not going to go very far. Besides the fact that the people that are selling the houses are going to be aware that everybody gets $25,000. So what's going to happen to the prices of the houses? They're going to go up. They're going to go up. All you're doing is causing, you're exacerbating the problem. Exacerbating, a word that you're going to have trouble with here in just a few minutes. This is not going to solve the problem. The interest rates need to come down. Inflation needs to come down. Wages adjusted for inflation need to go up. And that has been on a terrible, terrible, terrible trajectory during your entire administration. And by the way, speaking of your administration, why haven't you done something about this already? You're sitting here talking about all these problems. Well, you've been in office with Joe Biden for 3.5 years, and God knows that his cognitive state isn't worth mentioning. So obviously, you've got a little bit of control in that administration. You could say, hey, Joe, we're trying to pass this. You sign it, we'll trade you a vanilla ice cream. And he was like, oh, sure, man. And you pass it.
Buyer. So these are examples. The example is what I'm going to do to expand the child tax credit, because listen, young parents in particular, they need help. They have a natural desire to parent their children well, but not always the resources. $6,000 extra during the first year of their child's life can help them buy a crib or a car seat or clothes, the things that are so crucial to that phase of their child's development. So my plans and my policies are really directed at exactly your point, doing what we must do to bring down the cost of living, but also to help people not just get by, but get ahead. And I'm proud to report to you that economists from Nobel laureates to Goldman Sachs have reviewed my economic plan versus Donald Trump's, and in comparison have found that my plans will strengthen America's economy. His plans will weaken America's economy.
Two things here. Also, economists have reviewed Trump's plan and said that it's going to work better than yours. So it's more of a he said, she said sort of situation. Also, are you telling us just not to believe what we've felt with our pocketbooks over the last, 10 years? Things were cheaper under Trump. People brought home more money. Gas was cheaper. Groceries were cheaper. Just since April, our cost of groceries has gone up about 150%. I'm talking about me personally. So I don't, and many voters don't particularly care what these Goldman Sachs people have to say about your economic plan. You have been in power with Joe Biden. Things were better under Trump. You're telling people not to believe their lying eyes. That's what you're doing, and people are very sick of it. It's not working anymore. That's why you're not getting to these voters, and Trump is.
As will weaken America's economy.
Then why do you think that's not landing with voters? Because in the numbers, it's the opposite. Former President Trump leads you on this issue.
Well, when I'm out, this is why I'm going out to Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Excuse me, just got in late this morning, actually. But going to 3 states yesterday, and I'm going to continue being on the road. I have to earn the vote. And it means sharing with folks my plan, but also offering them what objective analysts have shown to be the contrast between me and Donald Trump. My plans are focused on working people, the middle class, and what we must do to strengthen hardworking people to be able to do what they dream and aspire to be able to do. His plans are about giving tax cuts, massive tax cuts, to billionaires and big corporations. His so-called plan for the economy, economists have estimated, will exacerbate.
Told you. Exacerbate. The word is exacerbate. She's talking about exacerbating inflation, and it won't. What you've been doing, what the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration have been doing has exacerbated inflation. Inflation under Trump went up, 5.5%, 6% total? Maybe it may have been closer to 8. I don't remember, but it's over 20. It's over 20. You know, you're sitting here talking, you're saying all of these words saying we got to strengthen the middle class. You're not presenting anything that's convincing to literally anyone who's not either one of your donors or already so married to voting for you that it doesn't really matter what you say. You're not convincing anyone. The tax cuts to the billionaires and corporations, by the way, under Trump's proposed policies are not all, but most, they're incentives to bring manufacturing and businesses back to the United States, which is a pretty good thing. People like to hear that. People like to hear manufacturing coming back, especially the people in unions, you know, like the steelworkers union that endorsed Donald Trump. Yeah, so there's that.
Aspirate inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. So there's a huge difference between he and I.
Him and me. Grammar.
Let me ask you about something that you said when you were running for president the last time around, back in 2019. At the time, you said that the elephant in the room was whether the country was ready for a woman and a woman of color to be president. So let me ask you, as you sit here today, do you think the country is ready now for a woman and a woman of color to be president?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I am saying that in terms of every walk of life of our country. You know, I think part of what is important in this election is really not only turning the page, but closing the page and the chapter on an era that suggests that Americans are divided. What I know from personal experience, from lived experience, and from my travels even most recently, the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And what the American people want in their president is a president for all Americans, which is the type and kind of president I pledge to be. This is my life's work. As you know, I started as a prosecutor. I never asked a victim of crime, a witness to crime, are you a Republican or Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them is, are you okay? And that's what the American people want to know, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender or their age. They want to know that they have a president who sees them and understands their needs and focuses on their needs, understanding we all deserve to have a president who is focused on solutions and not just fanning the flames of division and hate.
You've been
Yeah, but here's the problem. After that tremendous word salad that you just delivered, the fact still remains that it is your side. It is the left. And speaking as someone who in 2015 was a Bernie supporter, it has been the left unequivocally since then that has been the party of division. The ones saying Donald Trump is Hitler. The ones fear-mongering. You remember Russiagate 1.0? We're now to Russiagate, what, 7.0? You are the ones who keep saying Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. You are the fear-mongering party. You are the divisive party. Most people on the right wanted to be left alone. Why do you think that Americans that identify as Republicans are outnumbering Americans that identify as Democrats now? Would you like to know why? I'll tell you why. Because people are absolutely sick of the divisive behavior of the mainstream media and the Democratic Party, and they're ready to get you out of there, and they think that Trump is going to be the one to make a positive change. That's literally it.
You've been reluctant to lean into, to talk about the historic nature of your candidacy on the campaign trail. Why is that?
Well, I'm clearly a woman. I don't need to point that out to anyone.
Yeah, especially not Willie Brown. Look, it's not necessarily Kamala Harris, and she's not giving a terrible answer on this, where she's kind of trying to deflect from the fact that she's a black woman. Like, that's actually decent of her, you know? It shouldn't matter. What matters is policy and substance, like she said, which, she is vacuous. She doesn't, as we're seeing in this, everything that she's saying is very nebulous and vague. There's not any specifics other than, you know, I'm going to control price gouging. I'm going to give people $25,000. You're going to give people money is your pitch. The substance is lacking at a tremendous level with her. But I think that it bears noting that it's not necessarily her specifically, but it is her party that keeps bringing up her race and gender, by the way. How many of those ads that are, you know, don't be afraid to vote for a woman, you know, that sort of thing. Like, it's Obama's speech, you guys aren't willing to vote for a woman, and that's just not right, lecturing black men over it. I mean, it's not, she personally may not be bringing it up, but her campaign sure is.
The point that most people really care about is, can you do the job, and do you have a plan to actually focus on them?
But I hear you on
and that is why I spend the majority of my time listening and then addressing the concerns, the challenges, the dreams, the ambitions, and the aspirations of the American people. They deserve to have a president who's focused on them, as opposed to a Donald Trump who's constantly focused on himself. I think that's part of why people are exhausted with Donald Trump and his approach, because it's all about himself and his personal grievances, and not about the American people, not about how are you going to help families, how are you going to help small businesses, how are you going to strengthen our economy. These are the things I'm focused on. I'm focused on investing in the new industries on which America should lead and be a global leader.
I asked...
What new industries? Are you talking about your electric vehicle mandates that absolutely destroyed the state of Michigan and are basically causing a huge problem for you in that area? Or are you talking about cryptocurrency and, the new space race, trying to move humans farther out, colonization of Mars and that's... Oh, wait, no, that's Donald Trump's platform. That's not yours. I still don't really know what she's talking about. I don't think she knows what she's talking about. These are filler words. Good grief.
Global leader.
I asked because to implement the agenda that you want to implement, you have to win first. You have to win the White House. And right now there is a big gender gap in this race. Fewer men support you right now than they did President Biden. Some of your allies have suggested there's sexism at play. I wonder, do you think there is sexism at play here?
Let me just tell you something. You've come to my events, and you will see there are men and women at those events, whether it be small events or events with 10,000 people. So the experience that I am having is one in which it is clear that regardless of someone's gender, they want to know that their president has a plan to lower cost, that their president has a plan to secure America in the context of our position around the world. They want a president of the United States who honors our military, who understands the importance of America's leadership around international rules and norms.
Yes, international norms. You wouldn't know anything about that, though, because you've never been to Europe. Also, honors the military. Do you remember when Donald Trump went to the Arlington Cemetery to honor the families of the people that were killed in your disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, and you and Joe Biden tried to turn it into a political stunt, tried to make him look bad when he was invited by the families and you were not? Yeah, I think that people decidedly know who respects the military. It's not your running mate who... It's with his stolen valor history, good old Tim Waltz claiming that he was a command sergeant major. You're not the party of the military. Just so you know, you're not the party that military veterans overwhelmingly support,
regardless of gender.
So
and that is how I will lead.
Do you not see sexism as a factor in this race at all?
I don't think of it that way. My challenge is the challenge of making sure I can talk with and listen to as many voters as possible and earn their vote. And I will never assume that anyone in our country should elect a leader based on their gender or their race. Instead, that leader needs to earn the vote based on substance and what they will do to address challenges and to inspire people to know that their aspirations and their ambitions can and will be achieved through the opportunity to do that.
Jesus. I mean, there's not really a reason to stop it here, except that another question's incoming, but I can't with the word salad. It's killing me, guys. I need a break. I might stop, take a break here, and finish this in a bit.
Through the opportunity to do that.
Some of those voters that I spoke with at some of the events yesterday, for example, talked about they were there to support you, but also your agenda when it comes to reproductive rights and abortion access. And you have cast this as a matter of literal life and death, as an urgent priority here. If you win, it is entirely possible that Congress will be controlled by Republicans. So what specific concessions would you be willing to make in order to get something done on abortion access as soon as possible?
Well, first of all, look at what has happened since the Dobbs decision came down. A decision that is a direct result of the fact that Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention they would undo the protections of Roe. They did as he intended, and now in 20 states we have Trump abortion bans, which some make no exception for rape or incest, which criminalize healthcare providers in a state like Texas, prison for life for doctors and nurses if they provide reproductive care. And where we have seen this issue on the ballot, to your point about elections, from red states to blue states, when freedom is on the ballot, the American people vote for freedom, regardless of the party they are registered to vote with. We have seen that. And I know that there are members of the United States Congress who are well aware that their constituents are in favor of the very fundamental principle that a woman should be able to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do.
So is a question of pragmatism then?
Once again, we get a whole lot of words to basically say, I'm not going to negotiate with the Republicans. What's going to happen is we're going to make abortion legal up, till term, and we don't want anything blocking that. So what are you going to do, expand the Supreme Court? What will you do? You're not going to make any deals with the Republicans, so that means one of two things. You're going to expand the Supreme Court, or you're going to try to do it by executive order, which I don't believe there's any way for you to do. I mean, Roe versus Wade was unconstitutional enough, let alone an executive order where they tried to do this. By the way, I really hate how they keep calling these Trump abortion bans when Donald Trump made this gave more freedom to people about abortion than any other president since Roe versus Wade was put in place. Sending it back to the states allows people to have more of a say in it. And the Supreme Court has absolutely no right to legislate from the bench like they did to put Roe versus Wade in place in the first place. So, I mean, there's that, but this is really just a whole bunch of nothing to say, I'm not negotiating with the Republicans.
Is a question of pragmatism then, what concessions would be on the table? Religious exemptions, for example, is that something that you would consider?
I don't think we should be making concessions when we're talking about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body.
To Republicans like, for example, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, who would back something like this on a Democratic agenda if, in fact, Republicans control Congress, would you offer them an olive branch, or is that off the table? Is that not an option for you?
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals, because we can go on with a variety of scenarios. Let's just start with a fundamental fact. A basic freedom has been taken from the women of America.
Yeah, that's your opinion, but I think that there's probably a lot of pro-life people who would disagree with you. Besides that, you're not saying anything. Answer the question. Are you going to just be on record saying that you're not going to negotiate whatsoever with Republicans? Is that what you're saying? How in the world are you going? You're not going to win the House, the Senate, and the presidency. You may win one of 3. I don't think you're going to win any of them. But if you are the president and Congress is Republican, you're going to have to make concessions. Reach across the aisle. What are you saying?
Freedom to make decisions about their own body. And that cannot be negotiable, which is that we need to put back in the protections of Roe v. Wade. And that is it.
But what if you can't do that? What if you can't get that passed and you want to save lives in Florida and in Texas and in Georgia? What do you do?
I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole with you right now. Because
it's a question that's out there, because it's not a guarantee that Democrats will win control of Congress.
Well, I'm doing everything I can to make sure that we do. On this issue, I think that what is clear to me is whether someone is... I was just with one of the leaders, and I think opinion leaders in the Republican Party, Liz Cheney.
Liz Cheney, the same Liz Cheney who was voted out by her own constituents by 70%. That Liz Cheney? Oh, I don't think that was supposed to be the Republican who you were able to get, but I think she was your last resort, and yeah, the Republicans aren't going to touch you. Not with a 10-foot pole. The only one slimy enough to do so is a war hawk like Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney and her dad are some of the most vile, despicable, evil human beings to ever play a role in American politics. So she's not a thought leader on the Republican Party. Nobody cares what she has to say.
she is, as she has stated publicly and has expressed her
She said it
private
on
feelings,
stage yesterday.
she is pro-life. But she also understands the pain and the tragedy that has happened since Donald Trump allowed Roe v. Wade to be overturned. So that's my point about what is non-negotiable. It has to be that we agree that it is so fundamental that we allow women the ability with their doctor, with, if they choose, talking with their faith leader, to be able to make these decisions and not have the government tell her what to do.
Liz Cheney went crawling to the Democrats because the Republican Party rejected her. I don't care about her opinion. Donald Trump was right to appoint the Supreme Court judges that he did. What was he going to do? Just leave it vacant and let Joe Biden do it? No, of course he wasn't. And the Supreme Court was right to throw out Roe versus Wade. Those decisions should be state-level decisions. The federal government has absolutely no business meddling in it. And beyond that, the Supreme Court has absolutely no right to legislate from the bench, which is what they did with Roe versus Wade.
On the question of your beliefs, what you believe in, let me ask you this question, very broadly speaking here.
Sure.
Do you believe that transgender Americans should have access to gender-affirming care in this country?
I believe we should follow the law. I mean, I think you're probably pointing to the fact that Donald Trump's campaign has spent tens of millions of dollars.
They're trying to define you on this.
Yes,
I'm asking you to define yourself, though. Just broadly speaking, what is your value? Do you believe they should have that access?
I believe that people, as the law states, even on this issue about federal law, that is a decision that doctors will make in terms of what is medically necessary. I'm not going to put myself in the position of a doctor.
That's because you know that this topic is controversial and it will kill you with independents. It is very unpopular with them. You're not going to say anything about it. You're going to dodge and bob and weave and not give an opinion. And you think that that's going to win you votes. But in reality, the people who are on the left, who are the transgender activists, are going to be angry at you for not supporting them. And the ones on the right just don't believe you. And that's kind of leaning tendencies with independents is what I'm talking about as well, because the ones that lean right aren't going to believe you, and the ones that lean left are going to think that you're not being strong enough on this. This is a really stupid move by you. Congratulations.
But let's also understand that Donald Trump is running tens of millions of dollars in ads to talk about two cases, to distract from the fact that his policy and plan is also to take away the Affordable Care Act, which provides health care for tens of millions of people in our country. That his plan is to undo the $35 a month cap on insulin that it impacts millions of seniors in our country.
I'm sorry, you mean the $35 insulin cap that a pharmaceutical company actually put together, and the Trump administration helped to build the legislation for it, and then Biden signed it into action? That one? Well, I don't think you get to take credit for that. I don't think Trump does either. This was a collaborative effort by the left, the right, and a pharmaceutical company to make prices cheaper for Americans. Now, it did allow a little bit more negotiating power to the pharmaceutical companies, which is the only reason they were interested in doing it. But that $35 copay, it makes life cheaper for people, and people like it. But you don't get to take credit for that. Neither does Trump, like I said. Also, the ACA, Obamacare. You know, the thing that allowed these stupid Medicare Advantage plans to have so much more power in what they're approving and not approving. Literally, if there's, so I'm gonna explain this real quick because this is important. Aetna, Humana, a couple other of these Medicare Advantage plans. Just from a home health perspective, these Advantage plans are terrible. They don't approve anything. So there are actually seniors that, you know, they drive their car till the wheels fall off. They go in to go buy a new car, and they're told, sorry, you don't qualify for a loan. Your credit is shot. And they're like, what are you talking about? I pay all my bills. You've got $8,000 to $10,000 of unpaid medical bills because Humana didn't tell you that they weren't going to cover this, $4,000 MRI, that specific blood test, and they do that They tell you they'll cover it, and then they don't cover it. As far as home health, they'll tell us, oh, well, you've got therapy and nursing that want to go in and work with this patient. Well, yeah, we'll approve it. Oh, you want 10 visits? Okay, we'll give you 10 visits, and then if you need more, just send us paperwork. So we go complete the work, send in the money, or send in the paperwork, and they say, we're going to approve 3 of those. So then everything else has to be written off as a loss by the home health, so nobody wants to touch them. Nobody wants to sign a contract with those Medicare Advantage plans to actually provide health care because they're so freaking terrible. Obamacare needs to be completely revised. Trump is right about this. It needs to be cut down and figured out because as it stands right now, it is a terrible piece of legislation.
Away with the $2,000 cap on prescription medication, the annual cap. That his plan is to get rid of the Department of Education, which would mean getting rid of Head Start. That his plan is to give tax cuts to billionaires and big corporations and on the backs of middle-class working people. So let's not get distracted by the issues that, to your point from the introductory point you raised, people want to know that their president has a plan to make their life better.
You don't have a plan. And all of this about, getting rid of the Department of Education, well, at a certain point, it needs to be gotten rid of and re-put together because the Department of Education is a travesty.
And that includes bringing down the cost of living. It includes dealing with prescription medication costs. It includes addressing the housing crisis and affordable housing crisis in our country. It includes supporting our small businesses, investing in American industries, and strengthening our economy.
I will move on, but I don't know that I heard a clear answer from you on the issue of gender-affirming care. It sounds like
you didn't hear a clear answer from her because she didn't give one, and she won't because she loses no matter what she says. Look, she's going to continue to sit there and just word salad ramble at you when she doesn't want to answer the question. You may as well just get to the next question.
It sounds like what you're saying is there should be something between trans Americans and their doctors. It feels like that's a long way from we see you and we love you, which was your message to trans Americans in May. What do you want the LGBTQ plus community to know as they're looking for a full-throated backing from you for trans Americans?
This reporter is actually on the money with this. The trans Americans do want you to, the LGBTQ lobby, those people, they want you to support them fully. They want you to back them fully and tell them that you're on their side. And the fact that you're not doing that is going to lose you support among the most radical of left-wingers. I don't know that it'll be enough to where they won't vote for you, but you're losing support by doing this. They're going to call you a conservative neocon for not supporting their gender ideology. And you didn't give an answer. You sat there and you just filibustered. Because that's what you do best, Kamala. That's what you do best.
I believe that all people should be treated with dignity and respect. Period. And should not be vilified for who they are. And should not be bullied for who they are. And that is a true statement for me my entire career.
Great. That is a true statement from you. I get so frustrated when I listen to this woman speak because she just says nothing with lots and lots and lots and lots of words. But she's not answering the question. This is why people don't like you, Kamala. This is why, if you lose, these sorts of answers are why. This is why Trump is pulling ahead, because people, when you started opening your mouth and going on to podcasts and interviews, people started to realize she's got no idea what she's talking about. She is making shit up. She's just sitting there and running out the clock. And that's what you're doing right now. You're going to refuse to answer this question because you know that undecided voters, this issue is massively unpopular with them.
2 weeks away from election night. Last election, the former president came out on election night and declared victory before all the votes were counted. What is your plan if he does that again in 2 weeks?
Well, let me say this. We've got 2 weeks to go. And I'm very much grounded in the present in terms of the task at hand. And we will deal with election night and the days after as they come. And we have the resources and the expertise and the focus on that as well.
So you have teams ready to go? Is that what you're saying? Are you thinking about that as a possibility?
Of course. This is a person, Donald Trump, who tried to undo a free and fair election, who still denies the will of the people, who incited a violent mob to attack the United States Capitol, and 140 law enforcement officers were attacked. Some were killed. This is a serious matter. The American people are, at this point, 2 weeks out, being presented with a very, very serious decision about what will be the future of our country. And it includes whether we are a country that values a president who respects their duty to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Donald Trump has said he would terminate the Constitution of the United States.
Fact check, false. I'm not going to even bother with that one. That is ridiculous. This question is, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't want to get into the whole January 6th thing because that's a whole video in and of itself. And this video is already going to be almost 40 minutes long. So, I'm just going to say that, they've definitely considered this contingency, and I think that they know that there's going to be a crazy, crazy election day and the day after, because Michigan has already said they're not going to get their votes in until the day after. So, I'm going to take this opportunity to say not only should the Trump campaign, the Harris campaign, be ready for that contingency, so should you. Person watching this video, you should be ready for that contingency, because people are going to lose their minds no matter who wins and who loses.
The American people are being presented with a choice here about whether we want a president who understands that America must stand strong as a leader around the globe, or an individual in Donald Trump who openly admires dictators. My goodness, recent reports that he gave COVID tests to the president of Russia during the height of the pandemic here, when Americans couldn't get their hands on COVID tests. These are the choices before the American people right now. The choice before the American people is the choice to choose to turn the page on the division and the hate, and to bring our country together, knowing the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us.
Again, you didn't say anything. You're not gonna say anything. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really need to respond to it because you didn't say anything. You're just rambling at this point.
And that we can be optimistic about a new generation of leadership that is focused on what we have yet to achieve, to uplifting the American people.
Empty slogans yet again, and a new generation of leadership. Excuse me, you're in the administration right now. You're not a new generation of leadership. You're friggin' 60 years old. You're not a new generation. I mean, I guess at this point you are, because the last two have been friggin' geriatrics. It's crazy to me that Obama's just 63 right now, by the way, where the last two presidents were in their late 70s. That's nuts. But you're not new. You've been in politics forever. You slept your way to the top in California. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't. We'll just leave that part out. But you've been in politics forever. You're part of the current administration. Shut your mouth.
If you win, it is entirely possible that the federal court cases against the former president will continue on. He is, of course, facing those felony charges. Would you consider, if you win and he's convicted, a pardon for former President Trump?
I'm not going to get into those hypotheticals. I'm focused on the next 14 days.
But do you believe, is there any part of you that subscribes to the argument that has been made in the past that a pardon could help bring America together, could help unify the country and move on?
Let me tell you what's going to help us move on. I get elected president of the United States.
She's not going to pardon Trump if he gets convicted. Absolutely not. She's not going to say it, but she would never do that. And I don't know why she would. He's her biggest political opponent. But anyway, she's not going to win. So I don't think it really matters.
One of the things you've talked about is having a Republican in your cabinet, potentially.
Yes.
You've spent a lot of time on the campaign trail with former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, as you referenced. Is she somebody who you would consider putting in the cabinet? Have you talked with her about this topic?
I'll keep you posted.
Okay. On immigration.
That's a yes, by the way. Liz Cheney sold out her party, and everybody knows.
On immigration, because this is another issue that's really important to Americans here.
Sure.
Immigration's and customs enforcement, of course. Back in 2019, you stopped short of calling to abolish ICE, as some Democrats were doing at the time. But you also said...
I'd never called for abolishing
Correct. You
ICE.
stopped short of that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You said
Yeah.
we should critically re-examine it, and you considered starting from scratch. Would you consider, if you're president, starting from scratch with ICE?
Let me tell you what the Customs and Border Patrol agents need what the immigration system needs. It needs to be fixed. And it needs to be fixed in a number of ways that include bringing forth a bill that conservative members of Congress, along with others, pulled together, that we supported actively, that would put 1,500 more border agents at the border to give those folks who are working around the clock and need support the assistance they need to get their job done. What we would do with that bill, if it were brought forward, is be able to continue to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is ravaging communities around our country. It would give us the more resources to do what we need to do to prosecute transnational criminal organizations, something I have done. But what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got word of it and told his friends in Congress, kill the bill, don't bring it forward, because Donald Trump would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And again, in this election, there are two very different choices. One that is focused on solutions, and the other that is focused on constant grievance and running on problems with no agenda for fixing them. And in fact, on this issue of immigration, he has been an obstacle to fixing this problem. My proposal includes strengthening what we must do to ensure that we have an orderly and humane immigration system and that we fix what has been broken for a long time. It has transcended administrations, and it needs to be fixed.
No. I mean, what else to say? No, this stupid border bill thing again and again and again. No, that border bill, as you called it, was essentially just an amnesty pathway for everyone. I've made a video about it. I'm not going to get into it too deeply here, but let me make this argument. That bill would have sent $60 billion to Ukraine. That alone is enough to sink that bill. Nobody's passing that. Then, you have the issue where pretty much everybody who is at the border, they're just going to, fill out the little form on your app and then get into the country free under that particular bill. And you would take it out of judges' hands. That bill would have taken it out of immigration judges' hands and put it into the discretion of a DHS employee on to whether or not people could come in and stay in the United States permanently. Yeah, that was a terrible bill, and it was tanked because it was terrible, not because of any other reason.
You have made it clear that you believe this is a binary choice between you and Donald Trump. Those are the candidates on the ballot.
There's only
of course.
two choices.
Yes. And I know that Joe Biden is not on the ballot. I understand that. But the reason that you are at the top of the ticket is because he dropped out of this race. And so I want to ask you, and it was largely because of that debate performance back in June. You defended him in the days before and in the days after as you were campaigning for another 4 years for President Biden. Can you say that you were honest with the American people about what you saw in those moments with President Biden as you were with him again and again, repeatedly in that time?
Of course. Joe Biden is an extremely accomplished, experienced, and capable in every way that anyone would want if they're president.
And you never saw anything like what happened at the debate night behind closed doors with him?
It was a bad debate. People have bad debates. He is absolutely.
But that's the reason why you're here, and he's not running for the top of the ticket.
Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why.
What do you think?
I am running for president of the United States. Joe Biden is not. And my presidency will be about bringing a new generation of leadership to America that is focused on the work that we need to do to invest in the ambitions and aspirations of the American people.
It's a judgment question. That's why I ask. Can the American people trust you in these moments, even when it's maybe uncomfortable for Americans to level with Americans in that way? So that's why I ask. And it sounds like what you're saying is you feel like you never saw anything like that from President Biden.
I have worked with Joe Biden, hours and hours and hours over these 4 years, whether it be in the Situation Room or the Oval Office. Joe Biden is the one who was able to bring NATO together during a crisis where, for the first time in 70 years, Europe saw and has seen war. Joe Biden has done the work that has been about being a leader on what we have done to fix so much of what has been broken in terms of the economy because of Donald Trump's mismanagement. I speak with not only sincerity, but with a real firsthand account of watching him do this work. I have no reluctance in saying that. No, of course I don't.
Madam Vice President, thank you for...
In other words, she's not willing to admit that Joe Biden was completely cognitively unfit. Who remembers pressure? Who remembers America can be described in one word? Anyway, Joe Biden is so out of his mind with dementia, he doesn't even know where he is half the time. And you won't admit that, of course you can't, because you were part of that administration. Once again, you can't get away from it, and it's going to haunt you. I think that's it, guys. I went through that whole interview. It's crazy to me that anyone could consider voting for this person. The word salad is really the most unbearable part, and that's kind of strange, you know? But it is. It is the most unbearable part, and it truly, truly just makes me feel like I need to go take a shower. So I'm going to go. I've been recording this in bits and pieces, moving from place to place in between patients, and it's taken me about 3 hours to put this together. I really hope you guys enjoy it. I hope that you get something out of it. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed, share the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.